Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. You're watching Finance and Technology Insights, a weekly podcast. I am your co-host, Eric Buhrendorf. Along with me, I have Brian Williams. How's it going, bud?
Good, really good. Yeah, we were, I guess it's so far kind of a dud of a storm, right? I mean, although I guess it's supposed to come later, but we thought maybe we'd get some school closings today or a delay, but we didn't get much out of it yet.
Is Luke? Did Luke stay home, or did
Nope,
he?
he's in. He's in. My wife is probably not going to get any early dismissal, so he'll be in for a full day today.
West Hartford did shut down schools
Oh,
today,
they did.
so yeah, the girls are home today. But it seems like a nothing burger here in the Hartford area. You're over in Southington. Are you getting any accumulation?
Just a tiny bit. We woke up to pretty much nothing. Now it's kind of covered the ground a little bit, although the driveway hasn't taken it, so the driveway's still warm,
So
whatever.
you're west of me, and they said the West Hills of Connecticut are going to get slammed. I didn't even see the reports yet. How'd Torrington fare? Because I think
I
they
don't
were.
know. I didn't look. I was
Oh,
just
all right.
very focused on what we were doing.
Yeah, it's a nothing burger, I guess.
Yep.
So what's going on? What's going on otherwise?
We had a good weekend. We did the New Haven, Connecticut, the St. Patrick's Day parade, which was Sunday, which is a really, really big parade. I don't know how that compares to Hartford. I think Hartford is this weekend, but
Did you take the
we had a
train
good
down,
time
or did
there.
you drive?
No, we didn't. We probably should have. We just weren't. I don't know, for whatever reason, we weren't thinking about that.
It's
It was a 1:30 parade, so that was good as far as timing. Got a little bit of sun out of it, so we're on the sunny side of the street for a little while, and then but 1:30 was like right during Luke's nap. So this was the first, probably not the first, but one of the first times we just kind of skipped his nap. So we wanted to see how it went, but
how'd he
he
do?
did a good job with it. Yeah, so we're
Nice.
phasing the naps out. But
He probably slept in the car on the way home.
he did a little bit, although we stopped at McDonald's for a Shamrock Shake, so that kept him up a
Oh,
little
oh,
bit.
oh wow, you're really playing up the St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, we're leaning into it for
That
sure.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. We do well, not normally. We sometimes go to the St. Patty's Day parade. March is such a tricky month here in New England, in
Mhm.
Connecticut. You know, some days you get that 50-degree day and sun, and it's low wind, and it's wonderful. Most years it seems to be just kind of wet, cold, and uncomfortable. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we've had our March here has almost been a little colder and more treacherous than February was. I mean, we had a few days in the 60s in February, but
Yeah, yeah. So winter's out like a lion, it looks like.
yeah. So
Um,
business-wise, what's happening with you?
Business wise, we're expanding our operations team. We built out an entire marketing line of business. You know, so I talked about that last week and weeks prior, that we were building a marketing team for our internal use. They're really starting to hit their stride, and we said, you know, we had excess capacity internally, so. And it's such a common thing for our IT related clients to say, hey, you know, we need a website. Can you help us with a website, or, you know, all the kind of things around digital marketing. And we've always had to outsource it or partner with somebody, and we just never were able to control the experience that our clients were having. So I'm really excited that we're in the full swing of running basically a digital marketing. I don't want to use the term agency, but again, I think I have imposter syndrome. But we're basically bundling and reselling our marketing services to our clients, which is going really well.
Yeah.
Um,
Did
so
I
that
see that under like a slightly different brand? Are you naming that something different, or maybe I
uh,
just read something wrong?
it's probably going to continue to. I mean, the company is EVERNET Consulting LLC. You know, we're kind of DBA as EVERNET. We're not. You know, the branding is in flux right now. We're
Mhm.
calling it it's a line of business internally right now. So the IT is a line of business. The marketing is a line of business. So there is some kind of um, organizational separation internally, but we're still sussing out the branding.
Okay. Yeah, that's fun. That's a fun process, right?
Yeah, it's a new revenue stream for us,
Mhm.
and we're meeting. My business has always been, what value can I bring other businesses, and what feels good about what we do is, you know, we're not selling ketchup popsicles. You know, we're we're bringing we just listen for the pain points, and and what the clients need and what they ask of us, and then we just build a valued solution around the pain points, and that feels good.
That is good. Yeah, it's definitely something people are looking for, and everybody's. I'm almost surprised a little bit of the video and the marketing stuff. It feels like there's a little bit of delay in the COVID. It's like everybody we went to shut down. Like a lot of people wanted to get into the video or less networking, less in person stuff, but it's like they did it, realized maybe they couldn't do it themselves or didn't want to do it, or it was harder than it looks or whatever. And now I'm seeing a lot of a lot more people sort of outsource that. So I think you're in a good spot there.
Yeah, I mean the problem is, and we're selling this and we're consuming it. The problem is it's expensive. It's just
Mhm.
it's a laborious thing to run marketing, digital marketing. I mean, from writing the copy of your ads and your material to the production to the editing. I mean, it's incredibly laborious, which translates to cost. So
Sure.
it's really hard. Um, I won't steal the conch for too long, but the other exciting news is I built a kind of sales and business development team over the
Oh,
last
good.
few months. And what's really exciting is, our we do have enterprise clients, and we have some large municipalities that we support. And but traditionally, I would say 80% of our business was from the SMB market, and I basically I built this business development team and turned their sites to going up market basically, and
Okay.
we're just starting to see the faucet drip of that pipeline, that sales pipeline, and it's really exciting because we're not gonna turn our backs to the small business. That will always be a core kind of tenet of our offering, but we're really taking the company up market. So we're going to be doing what's called managed and co-managed support for enterprises. So
Okay.
companies that already have a CIO or a CTO, or maybe even an entire technology department. We're positioning ourselves to be an outsourced service provider
Mm.
for those environments. So that's also
And so you're
exciting.
doing that in a support role, not necessarily a replacement role. You're not trying to
Exactly. And
out
we never
anybody there.
yeah, and we never were. I mean, we've co-managed companies for years, and we always our job is always to make the client look good. So whoever our point of contact is, we were always what again, it's about listening to that pain point. It's not about like protecting our lunch. It was more about like where is the pain, and this is where we're going to fit in, and we want to fit in. That's why you see our reviews on Google, or we have a ton of 5-star reviews. Like our clients are happy with us because um, we're not like cannibalistic, or we're not hostile to where we fit in. We are synergistic. We so if a technology manager who hires us doesn't have to fear for his job, because we're not trying to displace him. We're trying to make him look good, or her look good. So, anyways, that's go ahead.
Oh, that's good. I like this kind of stuff. Did you ever feel like unofficially there was kind of a limit to the size or organization you could approach? Because I know for me, I mean, I'm a solo advisor and I'm proud of that and I'm okay with that. But I know that, 1,000-person manufacturing company is not likely to hire me to run their plan. They may
That
bring me in as a consultant to maybe check on the group that is running their plans, but I sort of have an unofficial limit. Did you feel like you had one or not?
That's a really fun question. I appreciate you asking that
Yeah.
question, and I didn't even tee that up for you, but that is a really good question. Um, Technically, if I had a CEO, CFO, CTO call me and say, "I see your content, I see your culture, I want you, Eric, to manage our technology in our enterprise," um, and we have 1,000 or 5,000 employees, right?
Mhm.
I would be candid with that person and say, today I cannot do that. But if you want me to be your champion, I can spool up the resources to do it. There's a
Right.
number of tertiary service providers that are help desk, just a warehouse of help desks,
Mhm.
services that we could bolt on temporarily while we're kind of taking over the show, that sort of thing. And then I would just partner with the stakeholder and say, like, well, do you want these to be FTEs? Do you want these to be subs? Do you want to, outsource this? And so I could manage that growth, but like today I don't have that turnkey capacity. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and that's the same thing for us. If it's you look at your participant education and things like that, if you want to have, that 1,000-person manufacturing company, if you wanted somebody to come in with a team and sit with every employee or whatever, I'm not that person. But if you like the relationship, it's like, well, wait a minute, I will sit on your side of the table and help you find the organization that can do that, because there's always that same thing with your business, is that the hiring person, even if they have a CIO, might not know exactly what they're looking for or the type of company that might best serve them. But if you're, supporting them in a consulting role, and you get to, put the other company under the hot seat on the other side of the table, that can be fun. That's a good role.
Yeah, yeah. So we're working on it. In fact, the business development team even said, like, okay, we're going to go after 500 to 1,000 C companies. And I said,
Mhm.
those would be great contracts to engage, but the better ramp would be like, let's go for the 200 to 500 or the 100 to 500 seats. Let's close a few of those, and then as we scale, we can continue to go up market. So they understand. So, what about you? What's going on with you?
So for me, it's a lot of the same. Over the weekend was a lot of the banking stuff, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in great detail. And
Oh
you've
yeah.
got some banking stuff too. So we sort of unofficially back and forth said that this would be the banking episode. So I think there's a lot to unpack there, just from a service, just from how you deal with clients, how it affects people. So just trying to research as much as I can. It's my job to be kind of the data funnel. It's to take all the nerdy stuff and see if I can funnel it down. In a lot of the advisor groups that I'm in, it was like, well, how do we handle this? We know people will have questions. We don't want to be alarmist to the tune of sending out like a special alert email or something like that, because that could, make people a little more concerned than they need to be. So there's certain tone or cadence. So I haven't sent out anything to all my clients or retirement plan participants yet. That's kind of on the radar for this afternoon.
Are
I
you
do
getting
feel like
any inquiries?
um, just more curiosity over concern, I would say. Like, hey, what is this? What's happening? Like, can you explain this to me? The whole explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, or explain it
What
to me like high school. So those are fun conversations, but not to the extent of a run on banks or am I safe or that kind of stuff. They might be thinking that at the back of their mind, but I haven't gotten anything like that.
So you
So
definitely have a deliverable that you got to draft then. Like
yeah, for
some
sure.
communication you're going to work on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think email's probably the way to go on that. Although I might do a video, not very evergreen, and it could change. That kind of stuff could change quickly, but might put out a short video for people who prefer to watch that. So that's been a big topic over the week, and I think probably last couple episodes mentioned. I'd originally called this project Record Keeper Connect, although that's kind of somebody was already using that term, so I'm going with Record Keeper Chronicles. And the idea behind that was, all right, we've got all these financial services firms who are traditionally terrible at marketing and telling their story. And then you've got all these states with these mandates coming along at various times. And then you've got these small businesses who are trying to figure out, like, okay, what do I do? What's the process? What do I need to do here? So the idea was, all right, if you're a local business, you reach out to your advisor, me or somebody like me. And then from there, we need to decide what platform is right for you. So what plans are good for startups, maybe good for existing plans, what platforms are good for high net worth individuals with maybe large average balance, or maybe plans that don't have a large average balance. Maybe they've been around a few years, a lot of turnover. So there's a lot that goes into that process. So I said, all right, well, part of my process, just like yours, to do the due diligence and talk to the vendors that you work with. So why not get those out there, and why not let's kind of do it live, sort of thing. So did a couple LinkedIn posts. I've gotten some good feedback from that. We recorded our first video either last week or the end of the week before, and put that out last night. So that was with a company called 401 Go in Utah. And so we just basically, the idea is, all right, we're in Connecticut. You've got to have a plan. why should we use your platform? Why should I use it as an advisor? Why should our small businesses use your platform? Just to let business owners know they have alternatives to the state plan, or let them know, kind of what's out there, and sort of pull these record keepers along in the right direction, because most of them are, terrible at content. Most don't have a lot out there. So this could kind of be their foray into that world. So that's kind of a fun project that I'm working on. So gotten some response from that, and hopefully recording some videos. Probably like to do a couple a week for the next 6 or 8 weeks to get us through the end of April, and then see how it goes from there. So that's been a lot of fun.
Nice. So that's
Yeah.
some biz dev. I haven't done well. We recorded a bunch of videos last week, but they're all in editing right now. But I've been in a dry spell. Have you put anything out lately?
Yeah, so I put the first one out last night of the Record Keeper Chronicles thing. So
Oh,
that was about 20 minutes. Um, and we talked about a bunch of different stuff. I think it went pretty well. Ideally, I'd like to come up with a set of questions and kind of give them, to the same questions to everybody, just so they can, talk about their ideal client and see who there's a fit. Because if there's some, 25-person law firm who doesn't have a plan, and they're looking around and they search, XYZ record keeper is good with, works with legal plans or high balance plans, or want them to click on that and find me as their advisor, and then make that record keeper conversation a little bit easier. So
nice.
first video yesterday, a couple more scheduled, and we'll see how it goes.
Good.
I actually did something I wasn't entirely comfortable with, but I put out a LinkedIn post and then tagged all the record keepers in it, which I don't know, may or may not be the right tactic, but I didn't, necessarily call them out or anything, just tagging them.
Yeah.
So
Did you?
nobody's reached out and said, "Hey, remove my tag," or "We don't want to be
I think
associated with you."
I think you can remove your own tag if and I
Oh,
think
really? Oh, that's good to
well,
know.
I know Facebook I think lets you remove your own tags.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so I'm gonna segue us into the SBC drama in a minute, but
Yep.
I did post. So just talking about tagging people. Did you see
Yeah.
my post on MTB? The
Mhm.
MT what is I don't even know what MTB is. MT Bank,
Uh,
M&T Bank.
M and T, right?
Yeah,
M&T.
I forgot what it stands for. Machinist or mechanic. I don't know.
Yeah.
But was helping a client with a account access there, and noticed that it's so dumb, it's so minor, but I noticed that their new password fields when logging into their online site, their new password fields don't allow copy and paste.
Mm.
And it seems like such a minor thing. And I'm sure that some technologist over there said, well, there's a certain injection attack that bots can do on form fields that this could be exploited. Um, and so I get that, but they do support copy and paste in the actual login fields. So the username and password fields, they do support copy and paste.
Mhm.
So it seemed to me that's the most vulnerable site for bot injection. You know what I mean by bot injection?
Sure. Yeah.
Um, so it seems like you would want to not support it there, but the new password fields you would, because the other problem is they only support a 20 character password, which it really should be like 255 characters long. Like there should be really no limit to the length of
Yeah.
password that you would support. It's kind of legacy and short sighted to have like a limited allowable password length.
Yeah. Is there any upside to having a limited? I mean, it's such
Um,
tiny storage space. I wouldn't understand why they would have a limit.
from a character storage standpoint in the user database, no, one character is it takes up like I think 8 bits or something, or
Mhm.
less than, so
Mhm.
it's not a storage consideration. But there is encryption overhead. So depending on what
Mm.
systems are used with the password, sometimes entering a password can cause an encryption and decryption process. But I don't even think like these web page sites don't do anything like that. Maybe LastPass has that consideration with the length of your vault password, for example, because every time you log in, I think they're decrypting your vault. So there might be some overhead there, but I certainly don't think on the web. So short answer is no. I don't think there's a real reason to limit, a 20 character password. Certainly not from 20 to like maybe 30 or 50.
Mhm.
So I kind of I kind of trolled them a little bit on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I'm surprised. Well, their website looks like it's 10, 15 years old anyways, and then when you
Mhm.
see a potentially it's an insecure practice because you're discouraging people from following secure password principles and practices, so you want to randomly this is the experience. We use the password generator to generate a 20 character, the max allowable password, and now you have a 20 string garbled string that you need to manually type into the new password and then the repeat password field, and took us 10 minutes, several errors. And that was me doing it.
Yeah.
Like it's just a normal person is just not going to do that, so my complaint was they didn't support copy and paste, but they also didn't support the password manager. So the password manager didn't identify that it was a new password field and
Mm.
could not inject the password for creating the password. But then at the login screen, the password manager was supported there. So it was
Mhm.
just disappointing to see a bank's website do that.
Yeah, that is interesting that they would have that limited. That's one of my favorite features of using a password manager is that you can generate the password and then it will not only fill the regular one, but then it will fill the
Yeah,
copy too.
identify the new password field,
Mhm.
generate a secure password for you, inject it into the field. When you submit the field, it'll recognize that you submitted it and then offer to update your record in the password manager.
Yeah.
That's how that's supposed to work. And any site with a meaningful security implication that doesn't support that model is I can't throw enough shame at them for doing that, especially a bank, especially a big
Mhm.
bank like them. It's
Yeah.
like, what is the CTO doing? Like, what is he focusing on?
Right, right. Well, it's mergers and acquisitions, and they purchase peoples here locally, so they're
Right.
worried about probably back end stuff before front end stuff. But
Yeah.
that's typically how that goes. Any response from them from you tagging them?
The same social media manager actually gave me the same boilerplate gratuitous blow off.
Yeah.
Thank you for the feedback. We'll send it back to the channels. So I the expectations are set that nothing's going to happen from my tweet. But
Mhm.
to kind of tie into what you were saying, I called out MTB on LinkedIn and in Twitter for that matter. But what's interesting is on LinkedIn, I can then see who views my profile.
Oh yeah,
And then I saw a number of MTB executives and in personnel viewing my profile
that's cool.
in LinkedIn. So there is some value to tagging.
Yeah, I have a piggyback story to that, and I wish I remember what company it was because I could give them a shout for having a good system like that. So I had generated through my password manager a secure password, just and you don't even look at those, right? Because what sort of value would there be to do that? So I put the password in and it copied to say your password again. I clicked OK, and it specifically said. Um, uh, I don't know what the phrasing was, but it specifically said using industry or company related words or name related. Like you couldn't put, Brian Williams 21 is
Right.
there a new password or something? And I'm like, it's auto generated. What would so I went back and looked at it, and that actually had generated three characters in a row, MNY, and it was looking at that as like money without the vowels, which people do,
Oh
and
wow.
it didn't let me put lowercase m, capital N, lowercase y. That had just been automatically generated, and it didn't let me use it. I'm like, wow, that's pretty strict. That's pretty good that they would pick up on that.
Is
So I
that's your
thought that was
password
kind of funny.
manager doing that, or was it the site that was
No, it
detecting
was
it?
the site that was doing it, saying you can't use that
Ah,
password. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
that one
a
was pretty
good
cool.
one of the benefits of using a good password manager is that they monitor passwords collected on the dark web too.
Hmm.
So if obviously they monitor your own passwords. That if you try to reuse your own password, your password manager will alert you of that. If you try to use a password that you know it was on the dark web, they'll alert you of that. And then yes, they'll use some database of logic that will try to infer like what you described, MNY, or something like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool that they did that at the site
I
level,
I
though.
know. I know. That was pretty good.
Mhm.
So kudos to them. I wish I remembered who they were. I should have written that down, but that was before your M&T call out. But
Mm.
so as part of the banking issue, so I want to start with, as somebody who's you like the phrase normal, the word normal. So as somebody
Yeah, I
who's
do.
kind of a normal, although you're a little more into that world than probably most people, how closely did you follow the story? Were you interested in it at all? It's obviously it's a technology focused bank, so a little bit of that in there too.
So,
But
so my personal interests, I'm a geek and a financial normal plus.
okay.
So I'm not. So you to describe to explain what you to say about normals, right? So as a professional geek, like I refer to non geeks as
Mhm.
normals, right?
Right.
And so in that context, if you were to
Normal
use
plus.
it, yeah, if you were to use that to relate to identify non financial geeks, right? If you
Mhm.
will, you might call them normals. So I'm definitely a technology professional, and from the finance side, I'm a normal plus or normal pro, if you will, and that's just
Yeah.
because being the chief executive here at this company, I just that's where my kind of brain space operates most days.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, how closely was I following? I was following headlines,
Hmm.
and I watched a few sound bites or clips. I think the YouTube algorithm threw me some Biden clips to see what his response was, because in as a capitalist, somebody who believes in capitalism, seeing a bank fail, people forget banks are businesses, so businesses fail all the time. So if you have an industry that's not allowed to fail, you are just inherently going to build in a hazard to that business model, or you're going to just inherently invite mismanagement. And that's the problem. Well, I don't want to make it all political, but that's some of the problem with these centralized governments that just try to manage the economy.
Hmm.
Um, a capitalist economy, or free market, if you will, whatever your favorite term is, not to trigger anybody out there, is should operate like a forest. The lightning strikes, part of it burns down. That 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 scorched part of the forest actually provides nutrients for new growth. I don't need to give a science
Right.
class here, but I mean, it's healthy for the economy for businesses to fail, because then those assets are consumed by other healthy businesses, and then those businesses grow, and there's just this economy, and that's so. Um, I was watching the news cycle to see to what extent Biden and the federal government was going to backstop these, and my understanding is two other businesses in the recent news cycle have also gone under, right, or they're
Yeah.
under
Yeah.
conservatorship or whatever.
Yep. So the yes, so second biggest bank failure that we've ever had, and first one since 08, 09, which is almost too long. Like you said, it's part of the business cycle to have banks fail, and it's probably a good thing, so to speak, when it does. When businesses fail, that creates the whole next generation of businesses, and all the factories went out and stuff. And now all the breweries come in and take all the factories now that all the factories moved. But so I think, from a banking perspective, a lot of people don't still really understand how banking works, or how this could happen. And there's a lot that fits in with Silicon Valley Bank (SVP) that's traditional, and a lot of it's kind of non-traditional, and some things that are really super new and kind of have a technology focus. So so if Eric opens up Eric Bank and I walk in with $100 to open up a new account, put $100 in there, you don't take that back to the vault and wait until I need to take money out and then go back to the vault and bring it back out again, which a lot
Right,
of
you
people
sell it.
think. Yeah, you're going to do two things. You're either going to loan it out to somebody, who's doing a mortgage. You're going to take that $100 and loan that out, or you're going to invest it. You're going to, buy something conservative, usually U.S. Treasury bonds. And so those are your two ways to make money. You're either going to loan it out, buy bonds. And when you buy bonds, still really you are loaning it out. You're loaning money to the federal government if you're buying treasuries. So you're going to loan it out. Let's say you loan it out at 5%. You're going to pay 1% interest, and you're going to make money on the spread. What was a little bit different about them is the number of large depositors that they had. So given their proximity to the technology world, and banks are always, even though it's a national economy, banks are always going to have, especially what's considered a regional bank, they're always going to be focused. Texas-based banks are always going to have a high amount of customers who are oil-based, or um, you know, drilling and all that kind of stuff. So they're going to take in deposits from tech-savvy firms or startups who are going to have pretty big deposits, because normally they get funding from venture capitalists.
Yeah,
So
Roku, I read, had $500 million in deposits.
yeah,
Is that a
which
$500
is
million cash in a checking account with them?
yeah, right, because they think they'll need it, or maybe they just got a round of funding. One of the stories I heard was this startup did have just went through a round of funding, and literally had the check like in his pocket for a fairly large deposit in the hundreds of millions, and was like literally on his way to the bank and got tied up or whatever and couldn't deposit it. But it's crazy that it's that, it's that. I mean, he turned out he would have been okay anyway, but it's so you have really big deposits there, and they do it for efficiency, which is probably not a very good idea. So you've got the FDIC insurance limits, which two hundred
Only
and
two,
fifty thousand.
right?
But
So
it's
so
nowhere.
Roku's definitely getting 250,000 of their $500 million back,
Yeah,
right?
they're definitely getting that back, and it looks like they'll be able to get the whole thing back. So, as it stands right now, they're still trying to find a buyer for Silicon Valley Bank in the hopes that
This
somebody
morning I
will
read
come in. And
Apollo VC I think is making a bid for him.
yeah, because I mean, there's assets there. There's a customer base. There's even just getting the names and stuff of your customers. I mean, there's names. There's value
So
to a
there's still
customer there.
value in the entity, but it
No, and that's one good thing I think about the way that they handled it. Is shareholders were wiped out, and management is all gone. So there's no bailout in the traditional sense of let's try to keep this business going by
But I mean, in the
there's
brand, there's value in the brand and the business itself. But yeah, the shareholders are.
yeah,
When you say wiped out, now wiped out, like
yeah. If you
I
had
have a
stock
hundred
that's
thousand dollars in shares in SVP. See you later.
yep.
Taking a write off.
Yeah. Yep,
Wow.
it's gone. So anybody who took Jim Cramer's advice a month ago and bought Silicon Valley Bank is
Did
zeroed out.
Kramer put a buy on that?
Yeah, it's been a huge meme and huge little video that's been floating around. It's
Oh,
it's been bad.
he's
He
been taking
actually
some hits over the years, huh?
Yeah, there's actually there's a couple ETFs, exchange traded funds. So there's one whose whole model is to do exactly the opposite of what Jim Cramer
That was my next
recommends,
question.
called
Yeah.
the Inverse Cramer ETF. So there's some fun stuff out there, but yeah, he's got a really bad clip from about a month ago. It's it's
Uh,
not like he recommended the stock a couple. And listen, he's not the only one. I mean, Forbes at the end of last year, might even have been January, put it as one of its top banks and one of the most admired companies or whatever it was. But what's different about this than some of the Lehman Brothers or Bear Stearns and some of the stuff in '08 is there wasn't any sort of they didn't go too far out on the risk spectrum, or there wasn't anything that's been sort of fraudulent. It was just really bad management, and not in underestimating the risks of what could happen if there's a quote run on the bank.
Run,
So
right.
if you think of It's a Wonderful Life, that movie, and the run on the bank, and literally the lines out, people trying to get their money, there's still a time process to do that. So you would open at 9 o'clock and give as many people as much money as they could get, and then they'd close, and that was it. So but with the velocity of the ability to move money
Electronically.
out of a bank, because banks don't have that kind of reserve. So if you go back to the original example, the $100 that I put in Eric Bank, they're maybe going to keep $10 of that because they know that I'm going to stop. And
All right. I have so many questions.
yeah,
All
let's
right.
do it.
Rapid fire questions. So what is the statutory minimum cash on hand that a bank like that has to have for this
So
exact reason?
So physical on hand, so like a branch in their vault is pretty minimal. It's amazing how little actual cash they have on hand in the vaults. Especially now, they don't really have a lot. So a bank branch, it's pretty minimal. And if you get any sort of, if you go into a bank and ask for $50,000 in cash, they're probably not going to give it to you. They're going to say, we have to get the armored truck here, and we have to go through a whole process. Or
Schedule that. Okay.
yeah.
So that's the
So
branch, but what about the organization?
at the organization level, it's usually around 10%. And
Wow.
yeah. So so what's because they've banking businesses,
Well,
centuries
let's
old. So they know, they have a feel for, and actually checking accounts are called demand deposit accounts. So they know checking accounts, that money has to be pretty fluid. They know savings account is usually there, like we need to keep X amount in savings accounts.
but okay,
CDs, yeah.
but let's simplify. I don't mean to cut you off, but let's
Yeah.
simplify this for the normals like me.
Mhm.
Um, s- uh, Changes legislation coming. I mean, it's going. Will it address that minimum cash on hand statutorily? Do you think that's what will be targeted?
I think they're gonna have to, because what made this bank unique is it's a bunch of tech people. It's tech money. You don't have to wait in line to get your money out. So if there's any kind of rumor that a bank is going to some problems, think about it. Everybody at their desk is gonna take out their phone, and they're gonna wire their money to
Just
somewhere
do
else.
it.
They don't
Just
have to
do it.
drive 20 minutes to the branch and stand outside. So when you're a tech focused business with highly functioning technology people who can do things quickly, um, the amount of the time it takes for money to flow out of the bank is a really big issue. So that amount that they have on hand, they have to invest in shorter terms, which means they're going to get less return, which hurts the profitability of the bank.
Oh yeah,
So
I was gonna peel that all back for you, but
yeah.
let me just inch this forward. So statutorily, and I say statutorily again, even for people who don't do lawyer speak, that's the law that says the bank has to hold X amount of percentage of funds of their depositors in the organization, right? So you said 10% is now is the current approximate statutory requirement.
Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly the standard, but that's typically about what banks have. It's
Okay.
not as yeah, again, it's not really as cut and dry, because you might have certain maturities that
There may be
they're investing.
weighted percentages
Yeah,
based on
yeah, and
the
there's
asset.
always like a
Uh,
rolling
all right,
amount,
but
but yeah.
it's low. We would say
Mhm.
emotionally, we would say that that's low, right?
Right.
So now, how much is that tied to? Now, most Americans, and I'm one of them, and my father, like my friends, like most Americans don't travel internationally. They don't watch the BBC or Japanese market news. They don't they don't follow a lot of technology. But in Europe and Asia, their banking industry doesn't have this like 1 to 3 day delay from electronic movement of money.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to I don't know if you see where I'm going with this, but
Yeah.
it's arbitrary in the United States that exists, where if you want to send money from your checking account to somebody else's checking account, it's arbitrary from a technology. The technology well exists that we could just move
Right.
money at the speed of bits, right? There's no
Mhm.
reason why. I know that the big banks formed a company called Zelle, which I am just starting to learn about, if believe it or not, because I've been just on Venmo and Apple Cash, for a while now. It's like I'm starting to see the Zelle thing. Plus, I think CNBC did an hour long YouTube coverage on it. So, if is that delay mechanism part of why the banks knew, like, well, if we slow down the movement of money or the speed at which depositors can withdraw their money, we can continue to keep that ridiculously low cash on hand to avoid a potential run. I mean, you said it yourself.
Yeah.
The tech people can move their money if they catch wind that there's a problem, but they really can't, right? Because there is seem to be a sand pitting or tar pitting of the movement of money to some degree in this country, right?
Yeah, money movement is definitely unnecessarily slow.
In the
I think
U.S., because it's not
yes.
like that. It's not like that in Asia.
Right, right. And I would say banks have a lot more freedom in the US than they do in other countries and other parts of the world, because it's much more of a profit center for banks. I mean, banks make a ton of money in this country, and you could dial that back and put guardrails in there so that they don't make as much money. And that's sort of the process, right? I mean, that's why banks fail, is they continually go out on the risk schedule until something bad happens, and then they're either force it back themselves, or they're forced to kind of dial it back, and then they continue, because there's always that drive for more profits, and more
Is that what
profits
they
is
would
more
call
risk.
corporate greed?
Yeah, corporate greed, I guess. I don't necessarily like that term. You probably don't either, but I
No,
mean,
I don't.
that's just human nature, and that's you. It's greed, but it's also, you have a responsibility to your shareholders. One of the banks that got into some trouble had Barney Frank on the board. Barney Frank was one of the authors of the Dodd-Frank bill, which had all of these curbs in place to prevent some of the stuff that happened in '08. And he's on the board of this bank, and since he's been on the board, he's pushed for looser banking regulations to loosen up the stuff he wrote before, when he was in office. So round and round we go, right?
Now,
But
how much anecdotally? I know Fox News is trying to blame the woke left banking institution, ESG. Is it called ESG?
oh yeah,
How
I
much ESG was the bank into, and do you think that had played a material?
no, no, I wouldn't get involved in that at all. I don't see that. I mean, their client base is California. Their customer base is technology. Their customer base is probably on the younger side. So when you look at that demographic, it's going to lean certain ways, probably left politically.
But in
But I
short, the
don't.
reason why this bank went under is because they just over well, they weren't diversified, right? So
Yep.
so they
Yeah,
were
that's
just in
that's
this.
part of it. Their investments were extended too long to be able to produce the cash that might be immediately needed to satisfy the withdrawals. So
Okay.
so so if you go out and buy, let's say you go out and buy a bond for $100, that's what they come out at, and there's 3%, you get 3% interest on that bond. If rates go up, which they have done, new bonds are coming out at 5% interest rate. So your bond that you hold that only pays 3% interest is not going to be worth as much. Who's going to want a bond that pays 3 if the new ones pay 5? So instead of being worth $100, that bond, let's say, is only worth $96, because if you were to sell it, you've sort of got to compete with the newer bonds. So that's what banks do, is they have a whole portfolio of these bonds, and when interest rates go up, all of their portfolio goes down in value. And under normal circumstances, they wouldn't care, because they're going to do a hold to maturity. You'll see the acronym HTM. So that it doesn't matter to them if their bond is at $96, because they know that matures in 2 years, and they're going to get $100 back anyway, because they're invested in US Treasuries, which are the most safest
But
instrument
yeah,
on the planet.
but the bond
But
isn't cash.
right, but so if somebody comes into the bank and says, "Hey, I want my $100 back," the bank says, well, it's kind of
We
only
could
worth 96 because we invested it in this longer term
we can give it
treasury."
back to you in 2 years, or we can sell this at a loss, and we can meet your
Right.
withdrawal requirement now. So
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
down the avalanche, if you will.
Exactly. So then people say, "Oh, geez, this bank doesn't have enough money to meet my needs," and the bank is forced to sell at losses. So you might hear the phrase "mark to market," and that's one of those phrases where, so the bank will show that on their balance sheet as an asset, as being worth $100, even though if they were to sell it in the open market, they'd only get $96 for it.
Real present value. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're not allowed to, or they have the option of doing that, but who's gonna market to market and make their financial position look weaker by saying, well, it's really only worth 96. So what happens is, when you have these huge deposits and the velocity of money travels really fast, suddenly they're like, well, the stuff that was worth 100 is really only worth 96, and that kind of stuff. So what the way their quote bailout kind of works is that, all right, you don't have to sell it at 96, but as the government, we will loan you the $100, right? So you're able to borrow against that So you're able to meet those liquidity needs. So
And
now you come
that's
back to the bank and you say, I need my $100 back. And they say, then they go say, knock it on the government store and say, okay, we need $100. And then the government will take that $96 bond off their hands, give them 100 back. And then the government will hold that bond to maturity and
is that likely what the
whatever.
government will do
Yeah,
to
so that's what they decided to do on Sunday night to sort of prevent these runs on banks. But what makes this situation unique was the amount of deposits they had that were uninsured. So you take a regular bank, here on the corner, the overwhelming majority of those, probably 90% of the accounts are going to be under that $250,000 limit. This bank was on the other side of that. About 90% of their accounts were over 250,000.
good lord.
Um, and they were concentrated in some very large,
Yeah, Roku, half
very
a
large.
billion. I think it was
Yeah.
490 something million. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So a lesson to Silicon Valley themselves, the companies.
well, so that's when it comes back to your kind of moral hazard discussion, or your, what happened here. So you have these $250,000 limits, but now the government has basically said, well, $250,000 limits, but if something really bad happens, maybe it's going to be a little bit more than that. So so you get into the situation of them not wanting to be something systemic. So if you're going to use Roku as the example, Roku, would have lost a lot of money on this, and they would have, they have payrolls to make and blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. So your options are to let the bank fail and only give 250,000 back to Roku and say this is a lesson for everybody to not put, to diversify across different banks. Or you say, well, Roku, if they fail, then somebody else is going to fail. It's going to result in a company-wide failure. It's going to lead to a lot of unemployment, and it's going to be systemic. So what do you do there? No easy answers to those questions, but
So it
but
looks like
that's the moral hazard conversation with this one.
but it is confirmed that the Fed is going to backstop the
Yeah.
the depositors,
Hmm.
but at the expense of the entity, right? So the company, so they're not. Are they conducting business still? Are you demand? You said management's out. What is the like?
Yeah, people are allowed to get their money out. I don't know the exact mechanics behind it. I know if you're under the limit, you're allowed to get your money out to 250,000. So they are open for business. Some of the bigger banks, I'm sure there's a little bit of friction involved there. I'm sure it'll take a little bit of a while to get everything straightened out. But
And any prosecution for the
well,
CEO? I
so
know that.
so that's the problem. I mean, there was definitely fraud and stuff involved in OA. So there's definitely, more people should have faced consequences for that. But this is not the same, in that it's really just bad management. That's really all it
Right,
is.
right, right.
Because their losses are on the most conservative investment that's ever been known to man, on U.S. Treasuries, right? That's their been primarily their issue. They have some other stuff with some loans where they loaned money to, you know, startups and things like that. But that's kind of the nature of their business.